Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for joining. And welcome to our fifth webinar in our innovation stream in a cooperation of BATM and NATM. And today it's my pleasure to welcome Jack Dow from Grapevine. But before he will start his presentation, just a few housekeeping notes. So we are recording this session for those that are not able to join us this afternoon live so that they can still watch the content later on. And for anyone on the call, if you have any questions for Jack, feel free to submit them in the chat function. We will be more than happy to ask those questions during or after the session today. So now, with any further ado, welcome and thank you very much for accepting our invitation, Jack. And the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much for having me, Pascal and team. Real pleasure to be here. And as I mentioned to the guys, I just flew in from Cape Town to London this morning, so I hope I'm coherent and make a bit of sense to everyone. I'm just going to switch over to Keynote. So I'm Jack Dow. I'm the founder and CEO of Grapevine. And Grapevine is the first autonomous remarketing technology for business travel, or specifically for business travel. And we came and presented, I think it was in November of last year, and really enjoyed that. And it's great to be back seeing you again. So a bit on our mission, first and foremost. Grapevine's mission is to empower every travel business to maximize revenue by delivering personalized retailing experiences to their customers via a plug-and-play solution. And we're starting with business travel. So what's the problem we're trying to solve? Business travelers currently book less than 30% of their trip via their corporate travel agent, or TMC, as you'll know it's known as in the industry. And that's despite the fact that TMCs are being hired by corporates to support travelers throughout their trip. And I should emphasize that that's 30% of non-air or rail travel. So what does the travel journey look like? I want to introduce you to John. And John is very happy because the pandemic is ending and he's going to New York for a meeting. So what does John do as soon as he sets up his meeting? He books the essentials. He books in his flight because they're the high risk item that if he doesn't book it quickly, it's going to, the prices will go up or there won't be availability in the day he's looking for. He may book his hotel or car hire at the same time if he needs those, but actually only about 30% of people typically book their hotel as they go along, well, at the first stage. Next up, and this generally happens about 72 hours before travel, John might book his taxi to the airport or airport parking. He might think about fast track security, lounge access, maybe speedy boarding or a seat upgrade. Some of those can happen maybe on the day, depending on how time constrained he is. On arrival, John might get a taxi to the hotel, then check in and maybe do a room upgrade. And then during the stay, there's a huge amount of potential opportunities for John. There he might, organize a meeting room. He might organize lunches and dinners with either colleagues or people clients he's gone to see. He may even set up some live events, go and see, the Knicks play at Madison Square Gardens or go and see Hamilton on Broadway. But he's there for a bit of time and he's keen to make most of his time and, or maybe do a live guided tour or something like that, go and see some attractions. And then Jordan heads home and very similar to on the way out there, taxis, might get lounge access again, seat upgrade, and then a taxi home. And the interesting part here is that the first component of the trip is typically booked via the TMC. However, the rest is typically booked off platform, i.e. directly by the traveler. And that causes a big problem. It is bad for the TMC because they're losing up to $84 billion in business travel spend because it's not being booked through them. And that's because they're set up to service inbound requests for air, rail, and hotels, i.e. to be reactive to a request. So, hey, I'm looking to go to New York. Is there any way you could help me out? Could you book some flights for me? However, they're not geared up to be proactively retail to travelers after the initial sale, when 80% of these ancillaries are booked. And that means that these 80% of these high margin ancillaries are booked directly elsewhere. But so it's not just bad for TMCs, it's also bad for corporate clients too. Because booking off platform creates duty of care compliance issues. It creates expense management and productivity inefficiencies. And it also creates an employee well-being misalignment, especially in this day and age when the well-being of travelers is super important, especially with various challenges overseas that we've been dealing with for the last couple of years. And this is where Grapevine comes in. We built a plug-and-play AI technology layer that identifies missed booking opportunities from data and then proactively retargets travelers with personalized booking recommendations from the minute they book their trip to the moment they get home. We use machine learning to identify what to send to each traveler, when, and via what channel. And we do that by analyzing the client, i.e. the TMC and/or third-party data to identify potential retailing opportunities. We then personalize recommendations based on traveler preferences, and we optimize which products to send to each traveler when and via what channel. And the more clients we have on board, the better our product gets, because it means more data, better insights and personalization, and increased conversion. But this is a complex challenge because corporate travel data is rich but dynamic. So analyzing it for opportunities is complex. We've got to take trip duration into consideration. Is it overnight, for example? Therefore, is a hotel recommendation worthwhile? Has a hotel already been booked? In which case, we wouldn't want to send a hotel email. What are the company policies to make sure that those recommendations we're making are in policy? Does the company have a hotel program, in which case we want to send the right hotels to people? Do we have any client exclusions, i.e. is it a marine client who would be going out to a boat, in which case a hotel is not relevant to them? Or they've got specific, maybe it's group booking, in which case they might have a hotel sorted already. Does the client or the TMC have preferred suppliers that they want to use for content? If they're flying into London Heathrow, do we want to recommend somewhere in the centre of London, in the east of London, the west of London? How do we know where to send the recommendations for? And are the hotels available on any given day? So, it's not always just, yes, we can send you, here's the price we know. Those are dynamic prices and live pricing that we need to take consideration of, especially given company policies. And when you're sending follow-up emails, is the trip still eligible? Has the person booked a hotel in the meantime, or has anything changed during their trip? So these are all things from an infrastructure thing we need to take into consideration. Then when we're looking at recommendations engine, we need to understand travelers' preferences and behaviors. And we take that from previous booking history. So we know that if you or your colleagues have stayed somewhere specifically in a city before, that can be a good indicator of where you might want to stay again. Places that are popular with your colleagues. Is it a trending location? So do you want to be in the CBD? Do you want to be close to amenities? And that might depend on what kind of company you are. If you're lawyers, you may want to be very close to your clients because you're going in working till 2 a.m. and you just want a place to rest your head at the end of the night. Or if you're a fashion business, you might want to be closer to the action. And then what are your personal preferences? Is a gym important to you? Wi-Fi, all that kind of stuff. What are the local amenities? What type of trip is it? Is it a trip to, as I said, as a lawyer to go and sort of crunch numbers or accountants to crunch numbers? Or is it a jolly to go and entertain clients, in which case those have a difference in where you want to go? Does your industry have specific preferences? And what's the tone of messaging, which might differ depending on who the person is and the context of their trip. And then we need to work out we need to optimize which products to send to each traveler, when and through what channel, and to do that at scale. So that means personalized timing. Do you respond better to an email at 8 in the morning or 6 in the evening, or to a WhatsApp? And that might depend whether you're 3 weeks away from your trip or you're en route to the airport. What's your channel preference in general? Is it WhatsApp? Is it text? Is it email? Is it Telegram? Has there been any trip disruption, i.e. has your plane been delayed, in which case you might want lounge access, or queues along in the airport, in which case you might want fast track security, or is traffic heavy in Manhattan, in which case you might want to get a taxi earlier than you'd originally planned. And that allows us to send alert-based messaging that's contextual and relevant to that traveler, and optimize the content for that traveler, because some things may be relevant to them. They may always use airport parking, always drive to the airport, or always get a taxi, things like that. So we can construct emails based on those preferences. And we then send personalized messages that are optimized for conversion. The messages are white labeled to the TMC, so it looks like it's coming from them. We then can also send real-time WhatsApps and texts throughout the journey. And we do offer a consumer-grade booking experience if you want the full funnel experience as well. And this is, as I mentioned, from the minute you book your flight to the moment you get home. So we get to offer this total trip experience, which until now has been challenging for TMCs to offer. And we've been live about a year, and despite really low travel volumes, we can see that the product works. We're outperforming industry averages for conversions by over 90%, with a 52% average email open rate, a 9% email open to booking rate, and we've generated over £80,000 in sales for our launch clients. And that's just the beginning with our first product, which is hotels. And we've started rolling out other products, including airport parking, fast track security, lounge access, and taxis. And so I'm sure a few of you are asking, this sounds like yet another sort of costly and time-consuming travel integration. But that's not the case. Because we spent a lot of time over the last couple of years ensuring that we can offer a low cost and simple to integrate product that's configurable by client. So it's a plug and play solution with no integration charges for those who sign up pre-30 April. And there's minimal input from the TMC. So we do all the heavy lifting. And we work very closely with TMC technology partners to get the data we require. So that includes the likes of Travelogix, UK-based business intelligence tool, Agency Technology, the US-based reporting tool, Cornerstone, Grasp Technologies, Prime Numbers, and Medoko. So what we've worked hard to do is to ensure that we can get the data we require from these kind of players in the market. And once we plugged into them, and that's the work that we do directly with them, we can roll out to any of their customers in very short time. And we're servicing a significant pent-up demand. I don't need to tell everyone that the last couple of years has been very challenging. So the ability to access high margin revenue streams and deliver a personalized retailing experience for business travelers is more in demand than ever. So we're live with Grey Doors Travel in the UK, and we're currently onboarding 3 new clients, 1 in the UK and 2 in the US. We've also got an immediate pipeline of 10 more TMCs across the US, the UK, and South Africa, who hope to be rolling out over the next few months. And we've also got fast track access to over 600 clients via the plug and play integrations that I've just mentioned. But we've also a preferred partner in the Advantage Travel Partnership and Global Network, and Hickory Global Partners and Focus. We've got a hybrid business model with 23,000 corporate travel agents globally. We generate revenue via subscription fees. So we charge between £500 and £10,000 a month, subject to the TMC size and transaction volume. So if you've got a lot of marine clients, for example, that we're not sending emails to for hotels, we would charge less because it's only based on the amount of messages we send. And those subscription fees are really to ensure buy-in from your end, but also to, we're putting a commitment in terms of no integration fees. But you recover those subscriptions fees first before a revenue share on the booking commissions kicks in, and that's the real revenue model. And so we're looking to generate. We think we can generate between £25,000 and £1 million per TMC per annum. So there's a huge amount of revenue being left on the table, and that obviously depends on what your attachment rates currently are and how much we can increase them. But we think we can add at least 25% in attachment to the attachment rate of businesses, and trying to get everyone to at least a 50% attachment rate or higher. So why hasn't this been sold before? So managing air and rail globally is obviously very complex for TMCs and online booking tools. And whilst people have talked about what we're doing before, that always trumps everything else, as that's core to the business. And then generating market share is often the number one focus for, or maintaining market share is obviously the number one focus for TMCs, because I think circa 30% of clients, sort of contracts come to an end on an annual basis. So ensuring that you are keeping them on board, plus attracting new clients is incredibly important. And then, of course, some of the stuff we're doing is very complex. So there's high barriers to entry, specifically with, almost every TMC has a slightly different data sort of tech stack. So ensuring that we can, solve those problems before even sort of working together is really important for us, so that we can provide that seamless experience. So, as mentioned, the current ecosystem is focused on inbound sales. That includes most sort of national-based TMCs and the online booking tools who are focused on inbound traffic and sort of air, rail, and hotel content. Some of the global TMCs and challenger TMCs are beginning to do a little bit of quite basic outbound sort of messaging, but very early stages, and we're actually speaking to a few of these guys in terms of our product. And then where we sit is really in that outbound full total trip management. So really everything that's not air or rail, and making sure that we are capturing people at the time they're ready to book. And that's the really important thing, because when you're booking your flights or rail, you're very rarely thinking about your taxi or your airport lounges and things like that. It's only when you're coming up to your trip you start thinking about those things. And so being in a position to recapture or retarget those people at the right time via the right channel is incredibly important. And things like taxis, for example, that could be a taxi to the airport, a taxi from the airport to the hotel at the other side, and vice versa. So there's 4 potential taxi retail, high value and high margin taxi opportunities there. So we've got a great team on board, including Rob, who was formerly at Click Travel, and a great advisory board, including Annika Lofstrand, who I'm sure some of you know, Will Phillipson, who is co-founder of Silver Rail, and Landry Holly, who was head of innovation at Amadeus. So, in summary, our goal is to reduce ancillary leakage and ensuring travelers stay compliant with recommendations for accommodation, car hire, airport parking, airport transfers, and meeting rooms. We're building trust with this core content first before rolling out new booking opportunities. And then part of that is offering in-journey retailing. So fast track security, lounge access, and when we plug into NDC providers, speedy seat upgrades, and things like that, and speedy boarding. Offering these in-trip products to ensure people are relaxed and ready to go. And then capturing in-destination spend. So whether you're with clients or you're with colleagues or you're traveling solo, we're aggregating the best things to do locally to cater for one of my worst expressions of the world, but pleasure spend. So restaurants, attractions, live events, guided tours, micromobility, all in one place. So you've got it at your fingertips and it's being offered to you in a discreet way. So what's the outcome of this? The outcome is a win-win for corporates and TMCs. And that's because you have happy travelers because of a seamless end-to-end travel experience and a productive use of their time. So they're not spending a huge amount of time, searching for things they sort of need to do, want to do, or from their spare time, or, going onto individual sites to get those kind of ancillaries that, are throughout their trip. Increased revenues and margins for the TMC. So on-platform bookings, creating sticky clients who want to use the platform more, and increasing revenues per trip at a great ROI. And by providing, a really good experience to travelers, they are, get excited about those, those things coming through. And obviously this results in delighted corporate customers as well, because people are booking in policy, duty of care compliance is a lot stronger, and they also get better visibility to employee journeys. And this is a really important sort of part around the whole employee well-being stuff, to see the data around where people perceive value and what drives value to them throughout their trip. And for us to be able to report back on that is I think is really important in terms of understanding the value that sort of business travel can bring, and having employees on side can deliver. And with that, I will give you a small demo of the platform looks like. So this is a typical email. I don't know if you can all hopefully see my screen, but this is a Grey Doors email. Walter's traveling to Vienna on the 4th of April. We've actually what we can do is we can configure your suppliers. So we take your credentials for the suppliers who we've got direct integrations with. And so Grey Doors, for example, wanted to use Expedia. We did launch with Booking.com with them. We've just signed with Travelport, and we're in discussions to finalize with Sabre and Amadeus as well. And that means that anyone you want to use, you can let us know, and we can just configure it to you with some of your with your credentials. So that means that the offers that are coming through are essentially your offers, and they'll match what you're offering on your platforms. One thing we're about to add is labeling here. So you've stayed here before, popular with your colleagues, or trending area, those kind of things. And these emails, ultimately we're a group of data science and sort of marketing experts who can will always be fine-tuning this based on a combination of quantitative and qualitative data to understand what resonates with people. And as those data volumes increase, the machine learning takes over and will optimize those messages to each particular person. We've showed you some hotels. Then if you can also let us know if you've already booked your hotel. And if you click through to a hotel, you come to this white labeled front end. So this is a couple of day trip. You've got all the sort of what you'd expect from a consumer grade experience, all the facilities, and you can go through, you can select a room, and then you request a booking at the moment, which then essentially sends an email to the agent who then fulfills it. But we will make that a direct booking button sort of over time. And then if you want to search for Vienna, you can come see other hotels in Vienna. You can filter by things that are important to you, view stuff on a map. And again, as we learn more about you and the end users, those sort of where those places are, where the recommendations are positioned, will be more relevant to each individual person. And as we add other content, so airport parking, lounge access, restaurants, taxis, etc., those will all come into the platform as well.
Question here, is content based on company data or overall multiple companies' data?
Yeah, good question, Odette. So this is, so in terms of historical data, it's a combination of the two. We make very sure to make sure that there's no sort of data pollution in terms of GDPR, etc. So things like where you've stayed before and where people in your company have stayed before is obviously very specific to your company. Then when we start looking at things like popular areas in a city, we can combine the data from sort of multiple sources, from TSVs, but also from external data as well. So the likes of Travelport and sort of Booking and Expedia are, keen for us to use data that they've collated to help improve those recommendations. So that's kind of anonymized data around where are important areas in cities or value sort of relevant areas in cities for you. And then from a cohort analysis perspective, we might know that you, as I said before, work for a fashion group, or you're sort of lawyers, or you're kind of in industry in some way. And so that kind of cohort analysis can obviously sort of impact the kind of recommendations that are getting made and the locations of those recommendations. So if, for example, you work for, BMW and you've got a plant in a certain area in the UK, then, if you're flying into a certain location, you're probably going to want to be near that plant. So that's one of the things we can do, is we can have points of interest that can help weight those recommendations as well.
Another question. Is it possible to add a preferred program that's pushed before other hotels?
Yes, absolutely. So that's one of the things we're working on at the moment with a couple of clients. And with those GDS integrations, that's something that if it's already in the GDS, then we can see that. But one of the interesting things that we found around the hotel programs is essentially the question around why are people not booking through the TMC? Is it because they're being forced into hotel programs that they don't want to sort of book through? So I think this is something that, the ongoing relationship, and we see every sort of client as a partner, and we're working together to try and work out sort of the best way forward. And similarly with corporates as well. And one of the kind of the interesting things that people talk about is, if there is a hotel program, but you can get it cheaper through Booking or Expedia, should we be doing that as long as you're getting the right hotel? And so it depends on what the hotel program is, where some people might be flexible in some areas or not in others. And this is part of the ongoing sort of process is, do we show just stuff that is on the program, or do we, or are we kind of, a bit more, liberal, or are we open to showing other things that might encourage people to book on the platform? And so that depends on the tolerances of the corporate in terms of, and we can configure, down to the corporate and or individual level to say, actually you're happy to show some other stuff as well, because the priority is then booking in platform rather than a specific hotel. But I think that's on a corporate by corporate basis.
I see no further questions. This is the end of your presentation, Jack.
It is the end of my presentation.
Okay.
Short and sweet.
No, perfect. If there are no more questions, I'm going to make myself visible again. And I'm
happy for anyone to contact me at any stage. I've left my contact details there, jack@grapevine.travel. But yeah, so I think it's, I suppose, the summary there was really around the fact that it's a really sort of cheap and simple to integrate. So this doesn't have to go onto a product roadmap because we're doing all the heavy lifting, and it really is a data feed that we require to deliver the product. And really, is that another question that's just come in?
Yeah, it says here. What about the reports, and what do you produce, and do you give advice to the client on possible actions?
Yeah, good question. So yes, we do. We produce a report that is accessible sort of to the client whenever they want, sort of live reporting. And then over time, we will be looking to sort of, continually improve that reporting as well. So that's part of the product suite. And we've had some really interesting sort of feedback from sort of some of the stuff we've worked out in the reports. And that's a lot of that is around things like, attachment rates, the breakdown of those attachment rates. For example, the fact that we were tracking, and it was in a sort of pie chart of emails sent and not sent, around who we weren't sending emails to. So who, because we had a few clients that we'd sort of not sending stuff to. So marine clients, for example, or some slightly higher, especially as we started out and we're beginning to roll out to sort of most clients. But, there was probably more sensitive clients that we wanted to just sort of make sure it all worked beforehand. And so being able to identify the missed opportunity by not sending sort of stuff to people, but then also being able to identify opportunities such as we saw that we'd sent, I think it was about 150 trips that were over 30 days that we hadn't sent any messages for because Booking.com at the time didn't let us send hotel recommendations for over 30 days. And so when we talked to Grey Doors about that, one of the things they were like, wow, that's, that many trips, 150 times 30 nights of potential revenue that's being missed out on because they're not considering, things like a service department or something like that. Likewise, stuff like trip matching. So we identified that we'd started sending recommendations for people because they didn't have a hotel attached to their flight. But what we realized over time was that there was a proportion of people who were actually booking hotels on other trip IDs. And I think a lot of online booking tools charge per trip ID, as it were. So they were essentially being sort of double charged for the same trip. And so that allowed us to provide feedback in terms of, sort of an opportunity to encourage people to book sort of on the same trip ID. So it's been really interesting in terms of the, I don't think we set out to necessarily inform the TMC of behaviors, but actually increasingly we worked out that that's a really important part of what we're doing is helping them identify some of those missed opportunities or kind of patterns in booking behaviors that they can, they find really interesting.
You mentioned live report. Is that real-time data or just live report?
It is, well, some of our data is lagging because so things like so some of it is live in terms of real time, and then some of it we're going through the process of automating sort of all of it at the moment. So at the moment there's a manual component for some of it, but things like hotel bookings we don't actually check until the trip has started to make sure that that hotel, we don't want to say it's an attributable booking if that trip then gets cancelled or something like that. So some of it is essentially live data. Some of it's lagging as well because someone might book 3 weeks out in advance or something like that, or longer.
And then the final question, is it possible as a company traveler to opt in or out of messages?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's, and this really comes into the heart of sort of GDPR and things like that. So in every messenger, there's an opt-out. There's an ability for, the benefit of it coming from the TMC, not from us, is the fact that there's a sort of assumed opt-in because it's part of your trip that you've already booked. So you're delivering services for that trip. But yeah, people can opt out, and then we can make that of that trip, or we can make it a sort of broader opt-out. But ultimately, we're looking to make sure we can deliver value to people, throughout their trip and on different trips as well.
And are these questions visible for the travel agents as well?
Yes, exactly. So yeah, we BCC, we've got an inbox that is accessible to both us and the TMC as well, so they can see all the messages coming in. And generally before we launch, we kind of have a staging platform where they can see all the messages, check that they're happy with them, and then we can send them out. So yeah, absolutely. And that's really much part of what we're sort of, that kind of partnership approach is making sure that, you're happy with the messaging, happy with the hotels that have been recommended and all that kind of stuff. And we can kind of, we can test stuff in the staging platform before being rolled out, and all that kind of stuff. And actually the way the system's set up at the moment with that request a booking and the email getting sent to the agent from sort of that sort of request of booking, it allows the agent potentially to upsell a couple of things if they want to or need to.
Okay, no more questions coming up. So then I want to thank you, Jack, for joining us and your clear presentation, which showed where our world is still open for improvement, apparently. So, and that's the nice part about working with startups and new minds. So that's good. Thank you for joining us, coming from South Africa this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
And so, when you say it's a final question, there's, someone says thank you. Yeah, thank you on behalf of the participants. For anyone here in the call, thank you for being with us. This was the last one of the BATM and the NATM Innovation webinar stream. We hope you enjoyed it. Follow us because you never know what happens. We are following up on anything that's changing at the moment. And we hope that you will join us then again. Meanwhile, we are working together with Quartas and Breda University on our conference, which is on June 9th. And we are both BATM and NATM working on our own program locally, national program. I want to thank Pascal and Sophie for working with me on this webinar stream. It was the first time. It was very fun to do. Thank you.
You're welcome, Odette. Hope many more to come.
Yeah, me too. Thank you. Have a nice evening, everyone. And stay safe.
Thanks for having me. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Thank you, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.